What's up, everybody? Welcome to GoJo and Golic. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Jesse Cofield holding it down for us in the DraftKings studio in Boston. We are brought to you by Wrangler, made for the ride of life. Save 15% on your first Wrangler.com order when you use promo code GOJO15. Got a great show for you. As always, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review. Leave us that 5-star rating and check us out live Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern on the DraftKingsNetwork.com, DraftKings YouTube channel, Samsung TV Plus, all of that and more. Got a fun one today for you guys in terms of guests. Jason Fitz, our good buddy from Yahoo Sports, is going to stop by as we convene what we believe to be our final round of the NFL Playoff Committee rankings. We've got through all the College Football Playoff Committee rankings, and we have to decide who we are going to royally screw, a la Florida State, who I just saw this morning has now had the news press conference for the Orange Bowl canceled between them and Georgia. So you wonder if there's some still simmering bad feelings there for our Seminole friends. We've also got Brevin Jordan, Houston Texans tight end, going to stop by and hang out with us today here. The Good Vibes Texans continue to roll, and we get to hear all about their big win against the Denver Broncos and the playoff push from that team. But, Dad, overnight, Major League Baseball, while we've all been sitting around making sure we whisper about the Shohei Ohtani free agency. Don't say anything to upset our large Japanese son. But in the meantime, the New York Yankees decided to make some noise, Dad. The Yanks went out and did the damn thing. They acquire Juan Soto from the Padres in a 7-player trade that sends a whole bunch of arms out to the Padres that they desperately need as they got to offload some funds because their TV deal exploded underneath them. Yeah. And now cash is going to be a little bit harder to come by for all the stars they were trying to tie together to do some winning out there. And the Yankees, Dad, desperately get a few things. Certainly a lefty bat that they needed in this lineup, a guy who can get on base, a little bit of outfield help, but as much as anything else, they had a signal to their fan base that last year was not good enough, and we're going to go out here and try with one of the brightest young stars in the game.
Well, they're one of the few teams out there, handful of teams out there that can do whatever they want whenever they want, right? Everything else be damned. Like if they go over the luxury threshold of what is it, $297 million? What do they call it? The Steve Cohen tax, and have to pay on that. They may be over $300 million when they're done because now they're going to have to go out and buy some arms as well. But they're one of the teams that can do that. Everything else be damned. They'll do it. And they get a guy in Juan Soto who's now been traded twice in, I think, about 17 months. Remember, he went from Washington to San Diego, played a little over 100 games and 22 in Washington and like 52, I think, in San Diego. So gets traded there. San Diego has a plan, and the Yankees have a plan that says we need to win again because we can spend money and we're normally good and we haven't won a pennant in a while, so we got to do whatever we got to do. And that means even if it throws everything out of whack. So you got him out in right. You got Verdugo, who you picked up from the Red Sox, out in left. And now you got Aaron Judge in center field. So maybe some outfield issues on the defensive side. We'll see from a guy, especially with Judge in center field, the movement you got to do there and the injuries he's had. But again, you take all that because of the bats. I mean, Juan Soto's bat. He's also led the National League in walks in the last 3 years, doing that Billy Bean ball, just getting on base. That's what he's been able to do. So this is the Yankees saying we're going for it, but they're not done because we know they got to pick up some arms as well. And let's all remember, Juan Soto is a free agent after this year. So, yeah, and of course, the Yankees have the funds to sign him to a big deal. The dude's only 25 years old, so he's got a lot of baseball left in front of him. So this is, some teams that have the money when they get a little desperate can do whatever they need to do, knowing that it's going to cost them, but knowing it could get them where they want to be.
And he's a Boras client. That means he's going to get every last cent that he possibly can out of that. And you mentioned the success. According to ESPN Stats and Info, his adjusted OPS is 157. It's the fifth highest all time through a player's 24th season, trailing only Ty Cobb, Mike Trout, unsurprisingly, Mickey Mantle, and Jimmy Fox. So the guy gets on base. The guy gets it done. The full terms of the trade, for anyone that's interested in that, the Yankees also get outfielder Trent Grisham from the Padres as a part of that deal, and the Padres get right-handers Michael King, Johnny Brito, Randy Vasquez, and starting pitching prospect Drew Thorpe, and catcher Kyle Higashioka. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I
I'm
apologize
glad you tried that one.
if I didn't. Dad, my favorite part of this might have been the announcement from the Yankees Twitter account, because I didn't realize the Yankees were trying to have fun on the internet now. The tweet from the Yankees yesterday that went out around 8:20 p.m. was, Juan Soto appears headed to the Yankees. Now, if you're unfamiliar of why that's funny or why that matters here, go back almost a year ago to the day. MLB insider John Heyman tweets out a tweet that will live in infamy. The arson judge appears headed to Giants tweet in the midst of Aaron Judge's conversations in the offseason. The misspelling of Judge, the phrasing of the tweet, quickly deleted but never forgotten by the internet, and apparently not by the admin for the Yankees Twitter account, who decided to make reference to this. Dad, it felt like an A-plus vibes day for the Yankees all around, considering the internet currency they got back, and, oh, by the way, the remarkable 25-year-old player.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, if you're the casual fan, you're not going to get that. You're going to have to figure out what he meant, right? And what was going on, and dig back with the Heyman tweet that he had to, delete it, I think, 7 minutes after he tweeted it for two reasons: getting Judge's name wrong and getting the fact that he was going to the Giants wrong. As he said, I may have jumped the gun on this one, so it didn't work out. Sometimes you try and be first instead of right, and it can cost you. So Yankees doing Yankee things, again, in a desperation of Yankee things, because they haven't won in a while, and they had a bad year last year. And the Padres, there are those, I was reading grades on this, and there are those that are grading the Padres side of this as a better grade. They need to rebuild a little bit. They need to drop some cash, which they did. They need to build some depth, which they did, especially in the rotation. So, this is both these teams going in different directions right now of what the Padres are doing and what the Yankees are doing. So a lot of people think the Padres made out pretty good in this one.
Yeah, no, the Padres definitely filled a need, and like we said, a lot of the underlying cause for them, their local TV deal defaulted last year. Major League Baseball took over with some of the direct-to-consumer distribution rights and things like that for them, and they're going to be short a little bit of cash coming up over the next 6-7 years or so, and so you start to make some different decisions, because a lot of those big-time contracts, Dad, for guys like Soto on that Padres team were backloaded contracts the way we often see with these, and so decisions get made, and how it ends is we get another one of Major League Baseball's best and brightest young prospects wearing a Yankees uniform. We'll get to the potential for another another very impressive young talent to be wearing a different uniform. It seems like the Dodgers and the Yankees are always the names that come up, and
right.
We'll see how much Dave Roberts' public admission that he talked to Shohei Ohtani might actually affect everything that's going on here. But, Dad, if we're going to talk about leaks and things getting out, I feel like we need to finally put to bed what happened with the New York Jets. As our national nightmare is over, Zach Wilson has been named the starter for the New York Jets. And I loved the quote from Rob Saleh, Dad, when he got asked about if this would be Zach Wilson back as the starter for the remainder of the season. And he said, God willing. That felt like the most honest, like cathartic answer that he could give at this point, given what the Jets quarterback situation's become.
Listen, again, I wasn't inside there. We all don't know what happened. We're going on reports. As I said, I find it hard to believe that there would be a player of Zach Wilson's caliber and how he has played to basically say, I don't really want to go back on the field again. As I'm saying, I'm not saying some players wouldn't do that, but we've talked about range of where you are. Maybe where he got drafted is still sticking in his head like I had this kind of power. He says that was never. We'll listen to the sound of it, but I think this was the right move. I mean, listen, you cut Boyle, you have Trevor Siemian, and you picked up Brett Ripien. Okay, Zach Wilson in the line that the coach uses all the time. He gives us the best chance to win. I mean, it may be by a slim margin, and the chance to win may be very, very low, but he still does, I think, give you the best chance to win. So put him out there and leave him out there, barring injury, for the rest of the season, unless it's just an absolute, horrific show, which unfortunately we've seen out of Jet quarterbacks.
Yeah,
but I'd say he's the guy. Yeah, exactly. I would say, yes, he's the guy the rest of the year. Enjoy him in that Jet uniform because he's going to be wearing a different uniform next year.
This was Robert Saleh and Zach Wilson on the move to put Zach back in the starting lineup.
Zach gives us our best chance to win, and giving him another opportunity to go prove that. Like I said on Monday, he came into my office. He wants the ball. And he's excited about getting this opportunity to finish the season strong.
I think any opportunity you can get in this league is a good one, and I think more than anything, the love and care I have for these guys, especially this year for some reason, it's been challenging. I think everyone's felt that, but extremely excited to get back on the field with these guys.
Between the voice and the look, Zach Wilson kind of looks like a really skinny Chris Cody to me, which I did not realize until just this moment. So put that one on the poll, Guillermo, and we'll see how that goes, if Chris Cody would endorse that himself or not. But, Dad, everyone's saying what they have to at this point after an ugly week. I did see Rob Saleh also kind of responding to Aaron Rodgers' comments, being very publicly critical of the organization. He kind of pushed back that he was being critical of the team and more of the leaks and all those things. But unfortunately, what you said about barring anything going terribly, paraphrasing here with this team, that seems like the overwhelmingly likely option right now, like every week, because the Jets decided to wait so long to even think about addressing their problems at this position. Now it seems like they're in a position where it only gets worse from here on out. I don't see any reason why it would get better. This isn't like Alabama early in the season, cycling through quarterbacks against South Florida in a game they knew was infinitely winnable, going back to Jalen Milroe after that, because like you said, they clearly saw he gave them the best chance of winning, but then you've got this whole season of development that takes place. There was this positive trajectory. With Zach Wilson, we've simply seen too much football from him in this context to believe that somehow it's going to magically get better because he sat down for a couple of games.
Yeah, it's not going to get better. When there should have been a little voice trailing off after Robert Saleh said he gives us our best chance to win, which isn't very much. They just don't have a lot. They play the Texans, the Dolphins, the Commanders, the Browns, and the Patriots. Well, that should be a real doozy. Jets and Patriots to finish off the season. Can't wait for that one. That should be played amongst family, friends, and prisoners forced to watch it. But I definitely agree with this move. I think they went down a road that we all questioned the road when Aaron Rodgers got hurt of why they didn't try a different road. But this is a road, and there is zero. There has not only now, there has been zero they can do about it for a while. Now, there will be people that will say, well, look, Josh Dobbs was just picked up a couple of weeks ago. Joe Flacco's just 2 weeks ago. So they still could have done something. But this was their decision to do nothing, basically. So this is what you live with the rest of the year. It'll be ugly the rest of the year. They'll either squeak out wins or get blown out. And it all depends basically on how well the defense plays. Can the defense keep them in all these games? If the defense has an off game, they're screwed. Unless, they're playing the Patriots. Then, we could see another 6-zip game like the Chargers. But that's what it's going to be for the rest of the year. And I'm sure that's where Jet fans want them to lose every single game to try and get as better a draft pick as they possibly can. That's you bring Stu Gatz on, and Stu Gatz will have the voodoo doll out to have his team lose every single game.
I mean, if you bring Stu Gatz on, he was telling us before the season nothing was good was going to happen to this team. And if you believed that anything good was going to happen to this team, you weren't an actual Jets fan, because actual Jets fans know that is not part of their destiny. That's not something that's supposed to happen with them. And so he saw this coming before anybody. The Stu Gatz, the sports whisperer, absolutely Nostradamus this situation and called it to a T. So they get that one there. But yeah, like you said, it's at this point, once you've forsaken all other options, all you can really do. Like Minnesota with Josh Dobbs is sort of in the same situation, right? With their quarterback situation where when you're choosing between Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall, who's a rookie, you look at those options and go, all right, I think the Pasternaut probably does give us our best chance to go out here and win a few games remaining. Now, as we've seen, that might have hit a ceiling. And it would have with the Jets, too. Like Josh Dobbs is not going to prove to be. I think I remember 1 week after Josh Dobbs got in the lineup, there was some people thinking, could this be a Geno Smith situation? Could this be one of those spots where maybe he gets himself another year in Minnesota to try and be the long-term answer? And Dad, I think it's a good reminder that more often than not, like, there aren't a lot of Geno Smith situations out there where the right context can save almost anybody, but Josh Dobbs coming in, I shouldn't say that. There are more Geno Smith cases out there, certainly, because context can save a lot of guys. But you look at what Josh Dobbs has gone through in terms of trajectory this season. Geno Smith had gotten to sit and be the backup. He was inside the building in the organization in Seattle for a while, digesting all that. Josh Dobbs is on like his 4th playbook this season, walking into the organization where now he might actually know everybody's name. So while he gives you the best chance skill set wise out of those quarterbacks, it is a reminder he's not been set up to succeed all that well either.
I'm with you. This was a no-brainer. Josh Dobbs should start. It looks like you're going to be getting Justin Jefferson back. Because unlike the situation with the Jets we're talking about with a messed-up quarterback situation, they're nowhere near the playoffs. Minnesota is the 6th seed right now. They are the 6th seed. Yep. Green Bay is the 7th seed. They're both trailing Detroit. Mike, this could be the best last 3 games in the division for the year. The last 3 games for Minnesota are Detroit, Green Bay, Detroit. I mean, that is a way to end. So you have Minnesota and Green Bay battling to stay in the playoffs, and they're a few games away from Detroit, but Minnesota gets them twice. Now, to think that Minnesota would sweep Detroit, I don't think that would happen, but they have the opportunity to. It's right there in front of them. So right now there's 3 teams in the NFC North in the playoffs. And 2 of those, and they're playing one another. Minnesota, as I said, plays the Green Bay, and they play Detroit a couple of times as well. So I'm really looking forward to the last few weeks of this season on where these teams are. But Josh Dobbs is absolutely the right move.
Yeah, that becomes very fascinating there. I think right now, everyone obviously is buying all the Green Bay Packers stock they can. That seems like a playoff team and someone where the arrow's pointing up. The quarterback situation's a lot more figured out. And then if you're the Minnesota Vikings, with that stretch coming up in particular, and 3 games in the division that absolutely looked like they could all 3 be losses based on the point that you're at in the season, the beneficiary of that becomes the Los Angeles Rams. Like, we could talk a lot more about them, but Matthew Stafford being back now changes that offense that is fast, got Kyron Williams there. Puka Nacua, provided he survives all the litany of banged up things that happened to him in the last game against the Browns. But that's a team on a strong trajectory, and a Minnesota Vikings team that's trying to tread water right now that, you're right, their counterparts in the New York Jets certainly not entertaining any thoughts like that. And you'd have to imagine, too, like, we've saw and heard a lot from Aaron Rodgers in the last couple of days on a number of subjects. The one thing I don't feel like we heard an awful lot about at this point, Dad, was the notion of coming back and playing again. No. Like, I'd have to imagine he has looked at the scene now realistically there, and too physically coming back. Like, we haven't heard any more about like the progress there. There was a lot of words, and not a lot of them were about the stuff that we usually got, which is the trajectory of him getting back. And I think everyone involved is realizing, hey, there's a drastic step between going on field and throwing a football in a red jersey and feeling like you can not only move around on an NFL field, but move around behind the current iteration of the Jets offensive line. And so it's almost refreshing to see that take a back seat right now, because it never felt realistic to begin with, even though realistic had been thrown out the window given how fast Aaron Rodgers had chewed through all of this recovery.
Listen, how fast he has recovered to what he's doing now has been incredible. Absolutely incredible. And like I said, we've seen others with other injuries. I see Adrian Peterson 7 months from an ACL, and technology gets better, surgeries get better. You had a high ankle sprain, you were out 5 to 6 weeks. Now you got the tightrope surgery, you can be back earlier. So we see it. And did we see it here to where what he's doing now we don't see guys doing coming off of Achilles. But what he's doing now, what he would need to do on the field, it's less than 0% that he should even think about that. And I did not see his last appearance on Pat McAfee. I don't know what they talked about with this, but at some point I would imagine that he would have to be asked, where are you with this? And we have to put this one to bed. I mean, because part of the equation was, and I get it, not only do I feel good, but where are we? And they're nowhere. So, I mean, it has to be put to bed. I know Aaron kind of said, I don't think getting injured again would really set me back, which I don't even know how we could say that. That would set you back. Keep rehabbing, and we'll see you next year.
We will see him next year. Coming up next, though, let's find out where we are going to see Shohei Ohtani next year, and if anyone knows his dog's name at this point.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. Let's check in on the Shohei Ohtani free agency circus of secrecy, okay? So the latest that we have is Dodgers manager Dave Roberts acknowledging on Tuesday that his team met with Ohtani at Dodger Stadium for a couple hours. He's the first person to divulge even the most basic details about any dealings with Ohtani, which isn't great because apparently Shohei does not want any of his meetings made public. That's why it's the circus of secrecy, as I'm calling it. So he's being so secretive, guys, that news came out the other day that people were asking about, remember, when he accepted his award and he had his cute dog with him? So media outlets were reaching out asking what the dog's name was, and no one from Shohei Ohtani's camp will divulge that information. So we can't even get the dog's name. So did Dave Roberts put himself in the doghouse when he said that they met with Shohei? Come on.
It's such a shame because that dog is so cute. And Shohei bringing him out to accept the MVP was such a strong PR move here. That's the thing that confuses me is he brought the dog out. So clearly he understands what we've been hearing and saying for years, which is if you've got an advertisement, if you're running a Super Bowl commercial, if you want any positive PR, throw a dog into the mix, and it is always going to work out well for you. Bill Belichick famously put Nike, his dog, onto the draft day set, and it's like the most likable thing Bill Belichick has ever done. It gave us meme content forever, all of that stuff. So, Dad, this is a little bit bizarre on the back end, but by all accounts now, we are getting the message that Shohei Ohtani is an incredibly private guy, and it seems like that more, Dad, than he feels like unnecessarily making anybody jump through hoops, right? Like maybe this is some sort of test in his mind, but to me it just overall reeks of a guy who doesn't want a lot of his business out there.
Yeah, and I think, and listen, he has every right to do that. Let me start by saying that he can handle his business any way he wants. Not given the dog's name is interesting, but again, his choice, he can do that. Overall, though, those that are saying, and I agree, it's kind of a shame for baseball because not only do you want the season to go well, but what do pro sports like to do as well? They like to be talked about in the off season, right? Who's winning the off season? We talk about the NFL as a year round, with the combine and free agency and the draft. What kind of news do you have going on in the off season? This will be the biggest contract all time in baseball and one of the best players we've ever seen since, again, between batting and pitching, Babe Ruth. So, I mean, this is about as high as you can get right now, and it's not talked about because Shohei wants to keep it under wraps. His right, but still, it is a shame for baseball that this can't be talked about more, that the teams that are talking to him can say, we're talking to him. You can start to throw around, and all the insiders will throw around numbers that he's going to get, but this is the biggest thing in baseball in a while because of the stature of how good this guy plays, and it can't even be talked about to the point that their camp said, if you talk about it, we may penalize you. So are the Dodgers, as Jesse said, are going to be in the doghouse because Dave Roberts mentioned it. So to me, overall for baseball, it is a shame that this isn't openly being discussed by all sides.
I guess, as I saw Buster Olney, I love Buster Olney. He's one of my favorite people. We got to work with him at ESPN. He's the one that penned the article talking about what a miss this was for baseball and how Shohei could have been going around and doing this tour of free agency and waxing poetic about the cities that he was in and making charitable donations. And when have we ever seen that? In the history of free agency, in any sport that we've talked about, have we seen free agency? And I understand Buster, I think, was being a little bit purposely hyperbolic in the way that he approached that. But I guess my whole point is most of these things, like even Kevin Durant, one of the most high-profile free agencies leading up to Golden State, he took meetings in the Hamptons, but it's not like he was out here talking a ton about it. It's not like we heard a ton out of that. It's not like we got to see anything from the meetings in there. Some teams talked a little bit about it publicly, but what do we need that for really outside of a few sound bites as a public? We're going to talk about where he's going to go. We're going to talk about how exciting he is as a prospect. I just struggle to see, Dad, what part of Shohei Ohtani's beginning of his career in Major League Baseball ever looked like this version of his free agency was even remotely possible?
It's baseball in the news. That's what it is, Mike. It's baseball in the news. Now the only part they're in the news is that it's a secretive thing. It might be a little thing. It's not the biggest thing in the world. And Shohei to do tours was never going to happen. He's a guy, why he doesn't need to do tours anywhere. It would be kind of just like Kevin Durant. I'm gonna sit in one spot and you guys come to me. But to me, again, it's just baseball being talked about with one of the greatest players we've ever seen. It may not be a big thing, but it's something that, again, keeps you talked about in the offseason. Is it the biggest miss in the world? Is baseball going to suffer from it? Absolutely not. They're not going to suffer from it. But it would be nice to hear the actual teams that are involved and that they're talking about. Just be nice for us, give us more to talk about at times as well, maybe bring people on to talk about it, but nobody can do anything. You can't do anything because these teams know they might be penalized for it. So is it the end of the world? No. But is it fun to have the discussion, and does it keep baseball kind of in the top of people's mind in the offseason? Yeah, it does.
Well, you know what, baseball people, manna from heaven in the form of Dave Roberts, unafraid of the potential consequences, unafraid to speak his mind, a man who's going to live on truth and stand on business. This was Dave Roberts talking about Fight Club.
Am I able to say that? It's a good possibility. I think that, yeah, we met with him. You know, I don't want to. I'd like to be honest, and so we met with Shohei and we talked, and I think it went well.
I can't imagine, Dad, the heads of everyone in the Dodgers front office watching all of that. Their GM, Brandon Gomes, just looking up and being like, oh my God. Oh my God, he said it. Oh my God, guys, he said it. Get on the phone. He said it. We don't know what to do. Panic, panic, panic.
Oh, I mean, you could tell when the wheels were turning in Dave Roberts' head, right? How far should I take this? Where do I go? Finally, I think he was like, F it. Yeah, we talked to him. Okay. We talked to him. We had a good conversation. And he puts it under I just want to be honest with you guys, because that's what every manager, coach, anything all time is, make sure that they're always honest with the media. But you could definitely tell that the wheels were spinning there. And you're right, the heads had exploded as soon as he said it and how quickly it would reverberate back. Will the Dodgers really be penalized for that? I highly doubt it. That was about as innocent as a comment that you could make. He didn't really go any further than we talked and had a good talk. Well, you know what? No kidding. We could pretty much say the 4 or 5 teams that are going to try and talk with him, all right? So I don't think anybody walked away from that going, wow, what a revelation, other than, well, he just confirmed what we already knew. So I don't think Shohei, all of a sudden they're saying, well, okay, 1 check mark against the Dodgers, and we're keeping score now.
That's the thing. Like, we know the Dodgers were going. The Dodgers, yes. A team with one of those infinity payrolls, was going to talk to the most high-priced free agent in baseball. Much the same way we are not stunned that the New York Yankees went out there and tried to acquire and ended up acquiring Juan Soto. All these things make sense to us. We have known and have heard the Toronto Blue Jays, also apparently players in the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. And Dad, maybe most terrifying of all, according to one player agent who told Buster Olney that there's a thought that Shohei Ohtani might just go back to the Angels because he is devoted to the routine and the organization would be able to offer him the most money and the most leeway. They apparently let this guy do pretty much. It's like that line from Billy Madison or whatever. Since we let our The Wedding Singer, since we let our first class passengers do pretty much whatever they want, here is Shohei Ohtani. Like, he gets the run of the place. He's rich. And as Mike Trout, I'm sure, has told him behind closed doors, you can be rich, comfortable with zero expectations out here because they ain't going nothing and nowhere in the postseason.
And I've talked about this, Mike, for years since I first got in the media, is everybody is different in free agency on what their wants are. Is it a ring? Is it money? Is it geography? What are the reasons you're afraid? To him, $560 million or $530 million. Okay, I'll take $530 million and stay where I'm comfortable. I'm just throwing out numbers, but it's ridiculous, that amount. So his comfort level may be with the Angels. So he said, you know what? I'm just going to stay here. If we never win, okay. If we win, great. But I'm comfortable here.
Some people just want to watch the world burn. Apparently, Shohei Ohtani's free agency is just that. Coming up next, let's talk to Houston Texans tight end Brevin Jordan about their season.
back to GoJo and Golic. The Texans are arguably the biggest surprise of the 2023 season. And man, does the future look very bright in Houston. Now, the guys had a chance to talk with Brevin Jordan. He was a 5th-round pick in 2021 by Houston. First-team All-ACC at Miami in 2019. 1,358 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns in 31 career games with the Hurricanes. He had a career-high 64 receiving yards last week versus Denver. And he had a chance to chat with the fellas about how it's going in Houston.
All right, pumped to be joined by Houston Texans tight end Brevin Jordan. Kind enough to give us some time. Coming off a career day for you, man. How are you feeling? You know, one of your best games of your pro career in a win against the Jags. How are you feeling coming off that?
I mean, I feel all right. You know, I'm ready to get back to work, honestly, to just get ready to do it again. You know, there's no need to get hyped over, 60 yards, in my opinion. Just got to keep going.
Feel you got a lot more to offer, I'm sure. But on a team that has been such to us on the outside, a surprise, with a rookie quarterback starting and what's been happening. What's been the talk as this season's going on in the locker room about the success your guys have had?
Honestly, I don't think it was a surprise to anybody on the team, to have the success that we're having. Honestly, it was the D'Amico and that staff, man. I mean, it was just swarm mentality since OTAs, swarm mentality. So I think, just because of, the coaches and the, what's the word, the standard that the coaches hold us to and the players hold ourselves to. I mean, I'm not nobody's surprised, honestly.
You say swarm mentality. Take us into that. What does that mean? How is that presented to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, special work ethic and relentless mindset. So for us, it's just you got to have a work ethic and you got to have a relentless mindset. We live by the word relentless. We're relentless with everything, technique, even your mentals. When we do walkthroughs, you got to be relentless, have a relentless attention to just get better. So that's just one thing we live on.
What do you think is the biggest thing your head coach, your young first-time head coach, brings to your team?
Man, he brings a juice, man. D'Amico's he's a guy that you really want to play for. You admire the fact that he can, whether it's tough, whether we just took a loss or we just got a big dub. He's the same. He's extremely leveled, man, and it's somewhat admirable because I mean, you want to play for a guy like that, a former player. You want to play for a guy that has that energy, that understands what it's like to be a player, how our bodies feel. So, I mean, it's awesome, man.
You feel like he's still got a few snaps left in him? Because every time I see him, I'm surprised that he's not out on the field with you guys.
Bro, he's huge, bro. He's a huge linebacker, bro. I'm so, he's stocky, bro. So, yeah, I think he could easily go out there. Give him an offseason, I think he'll go out there, get 5 tackles for us easy.
There are certain coaches around the league that you look at and you say, boy, when they get angry, I wonder what they're like. We always bring up like a Dan Campbell because of what his size. So when D'Amico gets mad, is there that kind of glare or gleam in his eye that's like, oh, man, this dude may still have it out there?
Yeah. So I haven't really seen D'Amico mad. He's honestly very leveled. He's the same, but you can tell when something like just slightly irritates him, just whether it's a mental mistake or just something small, you could just see it in his eyes. His eyes get low-key kind of clear, and he looked like he just finna rip somebody's head off, but he keeps it very composed.
So he's got that composure. What about your quarterback here, a rookie going out and doing what CJ's done for you guys here? How would you describe his demeanor, his emotional state during a game and in practice?
Yeah, so he's pretty much the same, honestly. He's a very leveled guy, but he's a West Coast cat. I'm a West Coast cat, so me and him kind of, we get along, but he's a very leveled guy who plays with a fire and a passion, that not a lot of guys, have. He's born with that competitive edge, that passion, that fire, that it really brings it out on everybody, all 11 guys on the field. It just ups everybody's play. And it's like when you play for a guy like that, when you're playing next to a guy like that, it's like, man, you just want to go 10 times harder for him.
Well, you were a rookie a couple of years ago. Compared to your rookie year and other rookies you saw around you, is he different than that?
Yes, 100%. He's very different.
And is it you mentioned that swagger? Is it that? I mean, even from a play standpoint, it just doesn't seem like he's ever overwhelmed by the situation or hitting a rookie wall or any of the normal stuff we see ascribed to those guys.
Yeah, the dude is a dude is different, man. I mean, I'm telling you, he's a film junkie. Like, I'm talking about, like, it'll be 8:00 on a Thursday. He's gonna send clips of the plays that we've been running in our receiver group chat. Like, the dude, he be here till I don't even know what time. He's a film junkie. I think what makes CJ, so good at early in his career is, I think maybe it's just, I don't know his psyche, but I think for him he has to feel overly prepared. The feeling of not being prepared enough, man, I think scares him. So I think he's always just overly prepared and he's ready to go.
What about your guys' offensive coordinator? Bobby Slowick's a name I think a lot of people are getting to know now. He comes from one of the most popular coaching trees in the NFL. For you as a skill player, one of the pass catchers in this room, what was the biggest adjustment you had to make to the way that he wanted to call offense?
Yeah, man. I mean, there was a couple that I had to make for myself. I would say running off the ball. I mean, that sounds like something so small, but in reality, running off the ball, creating displacement with the D-line in the run game, that was huge, man. And I would say, just honestly, in our offense, you have to be a Swiss Army knife. You have to be able to pass protect, block out the backfield, run routes, catch screens, block for screens. So, I mean, for me, just adding everything into my arsenal. I came from a program in college where it was all spread, one word calls, lineup. I wasn't asked to block much. So for me, this system, it's helped me develop my game overall.
Speaking of how the offensive system is working, how has it been, and is it going to change? Now, Tank Dell was second leading receiver, gone for the season. Now it's a shame. What a shame on that injury. But that happens. We all know. Everybody's been playing football. Everybody knows it happens. So what could change on this offense?
Honestly, man, I don't know. That is a huge loss for us, for sure. I mean, Tank's my dog, man. That's my dog. Honestly, it's a huge loss for us. But the game of football is, you guys know, it's next man up. You have to be mentally ready at all times to step up and dominate your role, for that game, for that week. So I don't think the offense is going to change much. He's going to be, we might add a couple different wrinkles here and there, but the foundation of our offense is run off the ball and just be relentless. So I think as long as we keep that mindset, we'll be all right.
Another guy that in your role in the offense, you mentioned having to block more now in this version of it. I'd imagine you and Will Anderson Jr. spent a fair amount of time butting heads during training camp and in the offseason. He had a big game this last time out here, a couple of sacks, starting to get home to the quarterback. But what have you seen from him all in the lead up to this in the offseason for a guy that was right behind CJ in the draft?
Yeah, that dude is a tank, man. That dude is a freaking tank. Honestly, Will is he's a very mature, just pro. You know what I'm saying? Just one of those guys that's just, bring your lunch pail to work. Let's go to work. You know what I'm saying? Just a greedy guy that's just is humble, just loves to work, man. I mean, during the offseason, there was a couple times where me and him were lifting together, like in our groups and stuff. And the dude is it's not by accident that he was voted captain. Like, his energy, the way he carries himself as a person and on the field is really one of one. There's a reason why he was a captain.
So let's look at the game coming up. The Jets, from a national perspective, when we look at that team, the offense has certainly been struggling, but that defense is for real. So from your side of the ball, going up against that Jet defense, give us a little scouting report on them.
Yeah, I mean, no, they're very similar to our defense. The family tree, it all kind of runs down. Saleh helped D'Amico obviously with his coaching, help him advance into the coaching world. But honestly, man, no matter who we play, the scheme. Yes, they're a great defense. They're electric, but honestly, the way we carry ourselves, we have a mentality of, if we do everything that we need to do as an offense, everybody step into the right gap, step into the right guy, getting hat placement, being stout in protection, receivers winning their one-on-ones. We feel like there's nobody that can beat us, honestly. So as long as we go out there and we do what we got to do, we think the result will handle itself.
It's clearly showed so far. You guys have been one of the most talked about teams through this NFL season. A big surprise for the outside, but as you said, no surprise for the guys inside that locker room. Brevin, we appreciate the time, man. Best of luck with everything going forward. We're excited to keep watching you guys do your thing.
Appreciate you guys.
GoJo and Golic. So on Tuesday, NFL Network's David Carr set the internet on fire when he suggested that the Eagles do something many would consider clinically insane.
And I think that when you look at this team, you have to have a serious conversation if you're Philly. And you have to really say, is it better for us to play Marcus Mariota right now and let Jalen get fully healthy? Because I would argue that it does not matter if you're the number 1 seed. Put Marcus in there, win a couple games. Maybe you have the number 1 seed still. You might have it. I'd say he's probably better playing quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, he would be more productive.
Hey, I didn't say that, Philly.
Later,
I didn't say that,
when
Philly.
you're healthy, we'll
I
see
know
you
what
in the
time it is.
playoffs,
I didn't say
Jalen.
that. He said that. It's
all the way to the
good.
Super Bowl.
Guys, people went crazy for this clip. It's a little out of context, right? Because he was talking more about like the fact that Jalen Hurts isn't fully healthy, right?
Yeah, so he was definitely referencing the injury, and I'm sure part of the thought process there is, Dad, Marcus Mariota, healthy, especially with what he affords you as a runner at this point, might be something as an answer for the Eagles offensively. I disagree with it still because of all the other things that Jalen Hurts affords you that Marcus Mariota just doesn't at this point in his career. But, Dad, there's no doubt as you look at what's ailing the Eagles, and we know this is all relative, right? The Eagles just lost another game for the first time in God knows how long. They're 10-2 or 11-2 on the season, whatever the record is here. And they lost to the best team in football, in the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
But looking at the offense, we know it's been trending this way for a while. And when you look at the litany of things that have seemed to fall back from their standard on offense, where they've been this dominant force, one of them is certainly Jalen Hurts has not looked comfortable, Dad. He's been dealing with that bruised knee all year. He's much less explosive, much less willing, I think, to hold on and carry the football. And in a world where their offense is also without Dallas Goedert at tight end and limited some in terms of personnel that they can put out there, and some of the plays like the zone read RPOs that have Dallas Goedert as a passing option off of that run pass option, without that involved there and without Jalen Hurts' legs, it does limit some of what has made this Eagles offense so successful since Hurts took over.
So I understood what Carr was saying as far as, hey, because we know Jalen's been dealing with a knee. Let him heal up, put Marcus in, keep their head above water. If they lose the number 1 seed, that's not as important as Jalen being healthy. And there was part of me that could go, all right, I kind of understand it. But when he said right now Marcus would be better on the field than Jalen Hurts, that blew it out of the water. I said, okay, there's no shot. I would agree, not even close to agreeing with that at all. But you kind of look at him this year, and it was kind of Dak last year, right? Dak ended up with 15 interceptions. Jalen has 10 interceptions and has lost 4 fumbles. So he has 14 turnovers this year, something we're not that used to with him. So that has been a little bit different. What that has to do with, does it have to do with, the knee? I don't know, but he has not looked as comfortable. But I certainly wouldn't pull him off the field at this point. No chance of that. So I do disagree that Marcus would be better now, but there's no doubt he is ailing a bit. But they do have enough to spread it around, though they do count on his running. And as I get ready to call this game and start to break it down, it's fascinating, some of the stats of how well, in all honesty, on the other side, the Dallas offense has been playing, and just how much the Philly defense has slipped. Now, a lot has done with injury, but they have really slipped. There are some really, really interesting matchups overall. Like Dallas plays a lot of man. A.J. Brown does great against man. I mean, do they do that? CeeDee Lamb, the only receiver in the league that has over 500 yards in the slot and out as a wide receiver. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting matchups to coverage. But a lot is going to be, yes, Jalen Hurts, get the rushing game going. You saw the 2 guys that were outside the facility saying, run the ball.
Yeah.
And Nick Sirianni was asked about it. He's like, yeah, we got those guys. We gave them some coffee, and, they're right. They would, whenever you look at the splits when the Eagles are playing their best, and pretty much this is true with everybody, you see that good split of pass run. Against the 49ers, it wasn't. And the game started to get away from them, but still when it was closer, there wasn't enough pass run split, something that they have to do that keeps them so balanced. So it will be interesting because they can go from a nice lead as the number one seed, of which they are, to right now, if they lose this game to Dallas and they split, and right now Dallas would be on top of the division, but Philly still would control it with the rest of the schedule to win the division, even if they lost this game. But it would be certainly a bit of a fall for them because Dallas is playing really well right now. It's going to be an interesting one in Dallas for this game.
Yeah, it's a potential huge statement for Dallas. Philly obviously won the first matchup between these two teams. The end of that game could have gone either way, and it was just a comedy of errors from both teams in the final 2 minutes of that game. Dad, with Jalen Hurts' role in this ultimately, I think it's two things, right? It's one, he's less viable as a runner in a way that he usually is, but also, and I was talking to Mina Kimes about this yesterday, and she brought this up, that the Philadelphia Eagles have now faced two high safety defenses at the second highest rate in the NFL this year, or something close to that. Teams are playing them differently, and the Eagles, because Jalen Hurts hasn't been as viable, because Dallas Goedert's not been there, because of the wonderful things they're not doing, they haven't been able to take advantage of those looks and run the ball at the level that we've been used to or think of when we think of this Eagles offensive line and how dominant they've usually been in that area. And so when teams are taking away more of the big play stuff that you can get from Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, and you're not able to go and mash them up front because of some personnel limitations right now, that creates a pretty interesting spot for them to wind up. Because, Dad, we saw last week, the Seahawks, when they played Dallas, on Thanksgiving, got in 12 personnel. They put two tight ends out there, and they had a lot more success running the football, getting their receivers open versus some of those man coverage looks. And Philly right now is not going to be in a position to take advantage of that in the same way, though they might be able to still find more success downfield because of how Dallas approaches this. It's just fascinating to see if this can be a get-right game for an Eagles offense that's not that far off. But again, we're grading them on Dallas, San Francisco, the upper crust of the NFC, not the rest of what's going on below them.
Yeah, because you look at the first time they played, and Dallas is a single high safety team, and Philadelphia averaged just a little over 3 yards a carry in that game. They ran it 33 times. They only passed it 23 times, but Jalen threw for over 200 yards. Dallas outgained them. Dallas had over 400 yards. And the Eagles had 320-something, I believe, in that game. The receiving, CeeDee Lamb, 11 for 191. Jake Ferguson, 7 for 91. Getting a lot of success in the middle of that field. So that will be one of the big things for me. Can the running game work for Philadelphia? Because Dallas pretty much, even though, again, Philly ran for 109 yards, but 33 times. So your yards per carry weren't very good. So that will be an interesting set to me, is can they get the running game going? Because we've said it, this team is still the number one seed in the NFC, and every week we say, well, boy, are they, where are they? Well, are they looking? And we still question it, yet still there they are at the top of the conference.
Well, and we talk about the offense, we should just bear repeating underlying metrics. They are 5th in EPA per play overall. They are 5th in drop back EPA. They are 6th in rush EPA. So they're still performing at a high level. But, Dad, the difference I do think, and this is kind of similar for Buffalo, who's had an incredible offense, who's turned the ball over a little bit, but defensively can't overcome it. The Eagles defense had 70 sacks last year and was a monster. And this year, they are so depleted at linebacker. Nickel's been an issue for them as well. See CeeDee Lamb in the last time they played in the career day that he had. And so that becomes the worry now, Dad, is I just don't know if the Eagles defense, because of attrition and personnel moves this offseason, is in a position to bail them out when things do go wrong for the offense at this point.
Yeah, I mean, because one thing, trying to get the pressure, you mentioned 70 sacks last year. They have 34 this year. And that Dallas line, Tyron Smith, who we've talked about with the injuries that he's had over the years, is by pressure rate the top left tackle in the league. Zach Martin's third at guard. Tyler Smith is playing well at left guard. I mean, this O-line is playing very, very well. They're just playing better than Philadelphia right now. That's just going to make it very, very interesting.
And what a great O-line porn matchup this weekend is right now. You want to talk about different styles, but you're right. You have gotten your Hall of Fame left tackle and your Hall of Fame right guard, who have both dealt with a litany of injuries, looking like they're back in year 4 and 5 in their career, physically and with all the benefit of experience now.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, and welcome back to the latest and maybe last edition of the 100% real, very important NFL Playoff Selection Committee with GoJo, Golic, and Jason Fitz. Guys, the Week 13 NFL Playoff rankings, you're looking at it right here. Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, San Francisco, Baltimore. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to you, the very real committee.
You know what, Jesse? I don't know if it doesn't sound like you mean that when you say that, and it's starting to hurt my feelings.
I mean,
it doesn't sound like you believe that we're a real journalistic outfit that's making this happen.
Jason is wearing a Grinch hoodie right now.
In honor of you, because you're being the committee Grinch. You are the committee Grinch at this point, all right? You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You are the committee Grinch, right? You know what?
I just hope everybody has fun at this latest meeting of the very real NFL Selection Committee.
I'm not going to lie. As I'm trying to make that point to Jesse, and as Jason Fitz, who you guys can check out, making great NFL and college football content and all sorts of content over at Yahoo Sports. You can also listen to him on Fox Sports Radio on the weekends. Completely undermines my credibility as I sit here wearing a Big Bad Barbecue shirt, our Big Bad Breakfast shirt that says lard on it. It's just a bar of lard on my shirt. And Jason Fitz is joyfully panning to his gigantic eyeballed Grinch face hoodie that I'm sure he bought at Hot Topic or something similar, because he's the only 47-year-old man shopping at Hot Topic on a weekly basis here. Completely undermines the credibility of this committee in a way I was trying to establish. Thank you, Jason.
First and foremost, I'm 46, Mike, all right? Second, I think that we're on brand here. I've gone with something Christmas and joyous. You've gone with something fat. And third, and I think this is important here, Hot Topic has delightful Funko Pops. Like, so yeah, I'm in Hot Topic all the time. Like, got good sales on them. Oh, they got some exclusives there. I got a barfing Reagan from The Exorcist a few weeks ago. Oh, it was a delight.
It's amazing. Every now and then I'll be in a Hot Topic. Quite honestly, I didn't know they still existed. But I think every time I'm in one, I look at the stuff, I chuckle, and I said, man, there's got to be some 13-year-old really enjoying this stuff. And lo and behold, there's our 46-year-old, 13-year-old right here.
Don't be jealous just because the hoodie. Like, the eyeballs are coming through. Right? Like, these are the eyeballs of judgment to the committee. That's what's happening right here. Like, the Grinch is giving all sorts of judgy eyes here, and I cannot wait for it.
So we're going to judge eyes on our committee here. Fitz, is our task this week basically to figure out who in the NFL we're going to turn into Florida State and abandon justice, abandon the principles that we know in underlying football, and find a way to screw over?
Oh, yeah. The step number one, easy. Jacksonville is Florida State. We don't know the health of Trevor Lawrence, therefore, boop, Jacksonville's not even part of this conversation. Without Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville is not a threat. So, boom, if I'm walking into the committee, I'm going full Florida State on this and saying, Jacksonville, see yourself out the door. When we know the health of your quarterback, we may or may not consider you being allowed back into this conversation. For now, Jacksonville, out.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting.
And in the state of Florida, too.
Yeah, Fitz. Real quick before we get to this, Jason, we didn't have you on. In the Final Four, in your Final Four in college, would Florida State have been in it?
No. Because the way the whole thing was set up, and Mike and I have talked about this for years on our different shows, there are 5 power conferences and there are only 4 playoff spots. So from the outset, they created what they hoped would be chaos. There was always a possibility there would be 5 undefeated and 1 would be left out. So knowing that it's not as simple as, hey, I'm going to be an undefeated conference champion, at some point you got to look at it and say, okay, if I had to bet my house, if I had to bet all of our houses together on Florida State versus Alabama right now on a neutral field, I'm taking Alabama. So all things being equal, that means Alabama goes in over Florida State.
That's not how it's supposed to work. You just said, yeah, there was a chance for 5 undefeateds and one
There
getting
was
let
4.
out. We had 2 one-loss teams make it in there. We had 2 one-loss teams of the power conferences make it in there.
Okay, so then where was Liberty? Oh my God! If we're just going to go undefeated, then let's
stop
put
it with
in the
Liberty.
playoffs.
Stop it. Just stop it with that.
In Conference US, the whole point is supposed to be there were 5 power. Like again, this was my biggest takeaway. There were supposed to be 5 power conferences that we thought of somewhat equally. We know that is not the case, but we had not seen that reflected in this way on the field. We've seen it in dollars and cents. We've seen it in conference realignment, but this is a clear indicator that the committee looks at the ACC and says, no, we don't view you guys on that same plane right now because you had an undefeated Power 5 champion. I get the quarterback thing, but that still does not seem like enough in a world where we are rewarding accomplishment in a way that has been the way the committee has done it for 9 years before now.
But you are the very one that has for years told me, hey, scheduling is so different from all of these schools that it's impossible to sit there and view all of it the same because schedules are, it's not Florida State's fault that Clemson was trash this year, and it's not Florida State's fault that, LSU wasn't good enough through the end of it. None of that's their fault. But it doesn't change the situation that you are tasked with deciding who the 4 best teams are. And I say all the time, 4 best of the most deserving. We decided long ago 0 and 1 aren't that different in the loss column. So, Frank, I'll ask both of you, which football team is better, Alabama or Florida State?
Well,
but that's not how we're supposed to just do this, or else we'd call the fight before the season starts, Dad.
Yeah, listen, I absolutely agree. Florida State deserved, and I know everybody hates the word deserve, and I hate the Liberty. Anybody who's using the Liberty argument is a guy that still lives in his parents' basement. I mean, that's a ridiculous argument to make when you're talking about Power 5 schedules, Power 5 conference, and oh, by the way, your conference went 6-4 against the SEC conference, so you can miss me a little bit this year with how dominant the SEC is over everything else when the ACC had a better record against the SEC. I get what you're saying, and we all know what the odds makers would do, that Florida State would be underdogged in all those games. But I'm sorry, I just can't get past the fact that not only did they win all their games, but I look at it the opposite way of what they couldn't do without their quarterback, but what they did with their backup, and then what they did with their third-string quarterback. We're still able to beat ranked teams by the committee in Louisville, ranked teams that they beat, and they got screwed out of the top 4. And again, lose me with we're just setting up for a blowout in the semis. Go look back at every semifinal game for the last 9 years, and there was only 1 year, and that was last year, where they were both one-score games. There were blowouts every year, sometimes in both games. So lose me with that argument as well, Jason.
Again, you're right, and being predictive is a dangerous, slippery slope. The hard part about all of this is that I feel everything you just said to my core, but I still think Bama's better, right? And that's just nothing changed. And if they were going to put Bama in, they had to put Texas in because of the head-to-head win. So, and Texas, frankly, deserves to be in.
Did
Texas
they? At this rate, did they?
Yes, because head-to-head has to matter.
Nothing matters. The committee knows better. They've got all this advanced knowledge, and they can prognosticate better. And so if they had looked up after this and said, oh, by the way, you know what? We're going to rank Bama ahead of Texas because nothing's real, and all of this is going to collapse, and the sun's going to explode and swallow us all, and we're going to 12 teams next year anyway.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The committee next year is still going to decide who gets those buys. So I don't think the drama's going. The other side of this, gentlemen, is that this is a great situation for college football. Because otherwise we'd be sitting here saying, oh, God, we're expanding next year when there's only 2 teams that are worth it. This is the 1 year that sets up perfectly for, oh, man, we need people will be excited for expansion now next year. All the wins, all the good news.
Listen, I agree because you are talking about buys with the top 4 conference champs. And then anywhere from 8 to 16, you're still going to have the arguments of who should be up to 12. So I do agree it would. But what would happen is you would kind of lose the meaning of that Oregon-Washington game at the end because they would both be in. Michigan-Ohio State because they would probably both be in. But that's for next year to decide. I feel bad. I would have had Florida State in. And based off of all of that, and I'm definitely a head-to-head guy, number 1 this week for me is, even though they don't have the best record in football, San Francisco. San Francisco is the best team in the NFL, and they're easily the number 1 seed, right? No argument there, right?
No, not for me. I mean, I think you look at this across the board. It's also the quality wins. Like, to go to the metric that they use, who are your big wins? Not only does San Francisco have big wins, they have big blowout wins against other teams that this committee I know respects. So, yeah, San Francisco being at number one is the easiest thing this committee's had to do so far.
So how far Philly falls becomes the real question now. Like, I feel like we were all sitting around and we were respecting what Philadelphia had done. We were knowing it didn't look quite the same the way it did last year. And now we've seen the injuries on defense have caught up to them. Some of the injuries on offense, especially Dallas Goedert, have had a big effect on them right now. And so how far? San Francisco is the clear number one for all of us. Quite honestly, putting a space between San Francisco and the field would feel appropriate at this point. But we have to pick a number two team. We had Kansas City there last week, and that didn't work out so great for us involved in here. They lose to the Green Bay Packers. And so does it become now number two Baltimore? Is that how quickly they vault up to the top here?
For me.
Yeah, for you, it's Baltimore. For me, how we're playing right now, it's Dallas. Dallas, to me, is the number two team. I think they're playing great right now. And isn't that what we're voting on is right now? I think they're, even as a former Eagle, it can be hard for me to say as we get ready for this matchup. But Dallas is playing great ball right now. So to me, it would be between, I agree with you, Jason, Baltimore as well. It would be between Dallas and Baltimore, but I would go Dallas.
So I could be talked into either one of these because they're both so good. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, no, I was going to say, and this is where the committee is not supposed to think, oh, what will make us look good? That's what got us in trouble with the college football playoff, because I'm sure deep down in the recesses of their brains, there's a thought of Alabama's not going to embarrass us at the party. Quite frankly, Alabama might make us look very smart because they're very capable of winning a national championship. I think Dallas is going to beat the Eagles this weekend. And usually when we've moved a team up in these rankings, they promptly go out and embarrass us the following week. See our top two teams losing this past weekend. And so Dallas, if we're looking ahead and prognosticating, does feel like they're on the up and up right now. I will say this Baltimore Ravens team still feels like one that we trust, still is the team that has the better defense of these two squads, and an offense that is one of the best rushing attacks in the NFL right now. So I wouldn't feel bad picking them. I would pick them to beat the Rams this weekend too. So I feel good about that. But Dad, I understand. Do you feel that strongly? They are clearly better than the Baltimore Ravens.
At this point, the way they're playing now, I do. I mean, that offense is just flying so high right now with the amount of points they're putting on the board since their loss to Philadelphia. It has been amazing. So, yes, I think they're just flying at such a big level right now. I would feel comfortable putting them in at 2.
I think also, you make a really good point about the loss, and it should be noted here. They both have 3 losses, but who are those losses to, right? If we're going to be the committee here, we're going to look and say who'd they lose to. Now, yes, one of them was a blowout, but if you're the Eagles at this point, you have a loss at this point to San Francisco, or if you're Dallas, you have a loss to San Francisco and you have a loss to Philly. Those are 2 good losses. So 2 of the 3 losses, I look at it and say, okay, if you're Baltimore, your losses have come to bad teams. So, I think that now I'm talking myself into it. Yeah, let's put Dallas at 2. Dallas comes in at 2. Let's go.
I mean, in defense of the Baltimore Ravens, when we say their losses have come to bad teams right now, their losses have come to 3 playoff teams. As currently situated, the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Indianapolis Colts are 5, 6, and 7 in the expanded AFC playoff picture right now. They all have a winning record sitting at 7 and 5, and so they are bad in that we can't reconcile some of their success. The Colts, I think, are a little bit easier to see the success of their strong defensive front 4. They had a backup quarterback who was a known commodity coming into the season. We'll see if the Mitch Trubisky-led Steelers can counteract or keep going what we think the post-Matt Canada Steelers were capable of. The Browns have Joe Flacco there, so we're all a little worried about what that might look like teetering on the edge. But I will give the Baltimore Ravens their losses are to 3 playoff teams. They might not be as good as San Francisco and Philadelphia in terms of the losses. So do we want to go with Dallas at number 2 behind the 49ers? Are we comfortable with that, knowing what's happened to Dallas in the past in big games?
I am, yeah. I mean, hey, we're not supposed to predict what happens in the future. Oh, I'm just stirring the pot here. We're not supposed to be predictive. We're supposed to just look at what's happened so far. So if you look at, and Mike, I hear you on that, but also that's part of the reason I think the committee is supposed to judge where a team is now, not where a team was when they played, right? So I think by the end of the year, the 3 teams you just mentioned will not be in the playoff picture. So, I think Cowboys by nature, although they did get blown out, that's a little uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
I think Cowboys go in at number 2, which means the Ravens go in at number 3 for me.
I would agree with that. And then the amazing thing is, if we go top 4, that means Kansas City or Philadelphia is out of the top 4, and Philadelphia still has the best record in football. And by virtue of head-to-head, I would put Philly at number 4. The gauntlet Philly went through and won. They beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs, and they beat the Bills back to back to back before they got blown out by San Francisco. So we keep talking about, where they're falling short now, Philadelphia, especially defensively. But those are 3 monster wins for them before they got just spanked by San Francisco. But they did beat the Chiefs head-to-head 21-17. So I would give them the nod at 4 and put Kansas City on the outside looking in, which I think a lot of people may be shocked at that. I don't know.
I don't know at this point, because I would agree. Like, I would probably vote Baltimore for the 2 slot, but this is a democracy. Dallas is going to be 2. Baltimore is going to be 3, and those feel like a coin flip right now. And then I'm with you. I think Philadelphia is at 4, which, by the way, before the season, if you would have told us 3 NFC teams were going to be holding these positions in our thought process, shows you how far some of the injury has taken the AFC down there. But I think Kansas City is a correct choice for 5, just because what we thought, really, the offense all year has struggled. The defense, quite frankly, is not what they were at the start of the season either. The bite's starting to come out of that, especially in terms of what they're able to do against opposing rushing attacks. And so I do think that's kind of where the Chiefs are realistically right now, if we take away some of the Patrick Mahomes dominance that's lodged in our heads, Jason.
Okay, so I hear all of that, but currently the number 1 seed in the AFC by tiebreaker in the standings is the Dolphins. And I know everybody's going to say, well, the Dolphins haven't beaten anybody. I get that, but okay, so Florida State, I get that they haven't beaten anybody, but here they stand, right now, neutral field, Miami versus the Chiefs. I think that'd be an interesting matchup. So this is tough for me, because I can't ever try and leave Patrick Mahomes out of anything, because I think I'm too scarred as a Raiders fan. I just accept his greatness to a level of it feels icky to not put Kansas City into this conversation. But I do think maybe there's a little disrespect to Miami in this process also.
Well, who are you putting it for? Are you not putting Philly at 4? You would go with an AFC team here?
No, I'll go with Philly at 4. I'll go with Philly at 4, like a falling 4, a 4 that I don't feel massively comfortable with. I just think if we're going to talk about first one out, I think Miami deserves to be in that conversation with the Chiefs. Like Miami at 5, the Chiefs at 6 wouldn't.
That could be fair. I could see that as well. What's interesting, because you mentioned the NFC teams, Mike, that are in our top 4. They're actually the ones holding serve, because before the season started, we talked about how deep we thought the AFC was, and we said the NFC is basically San Francisco, Philadelphia, Dallas. And that's held true, right? Detroit's been a nice surprise right in there, and we'll see if they can take it further. But the NFC has held at the top. The AFC has been kind of a mess at the top, right? I mean, we had 5-6 teams we thought could be right up there, and right now we have 1 in our collective top 4, and then 2 more as the first 2 teams out. But still, the NFC has kind of lived up to what our ranking was with them before the season.
Yeah, they're the known commodities there, right? You've got the Philadelphia Eagles and the 49ers, who look like they're once again on a collision course, although the Dallas Cowboys, who were a preseason pick for a lot of people because of this place of this roster, finally feel like, despite having lost to both of those teams, finally feel like they're in a place where we can go maybe, when they reach their matchup against the 49ers again in the postseason, if it gets that far for them. So I think we have aptly settled on a top 4 for this week that is sure to remain in shambles coming off this. So we've got San Francisco at 1, Dallas outvoting and winning at number 2 going into their matchup against Philly this weekend. Baltimore at the 3 spot there, and then the Philadelphia Eagles falling from 1 to 4 with Kansas City and Miami just on the outside looking in. Worth noting right now, DVOA's rankings over at FTN after week 13 had San Francisco at 1, Baltimore at 2, Kansas City at number 3, and then those Miami Dolphins we talked about at number 4, followed by 5 Dallas, and any guess who's at number 6 in DVOA right now, their efficiency metric over at the Fantasy Network? The Buffalo Bills. If that tells you what a weird, chaotic, disappointing season that's been, statistically, they have still been a monster. They just had a few too many poorly timed turnovers in a rough stretch. So,
also, just to remind everybody, we left the Lions out of this conversation completely, which is probably disrespectful to Detroit. I don't feel good about that.
And I think their defense at this point, everyone's kind of real. I wonder if it's time to reset expectations a little bit for the Lions based on what their defense hasn't turned into. But that's going to be a story for another day. The story instead for today is Fitz's gigantic toddler-themed shirt. Check Jason out, doing great work over at Yahoo Sports, dressed like your favorite cash register attendant at Hot Topic. Also listen to him and Fox Sports Radio on the weekends. Jason, thank you so much. We appreciate the time, sir.
Bye.
See ya.
Welcome back to GoJo and Golic. It's Thursday, and you know what that means. Kick off your NFL weekend with Thursday Night Football on Prime. It is on, baby. Is it? We've got Steelers and Patriots, both teams coming into this contest real banged up. Steelers rolling with Mitch Trubisky at QB after Kenny Pickett suffered an injury. On the other side, we will likely see Bailey Zappi in place of Mac Jones. So, fellas, these teams already had two of the worst offenses in the NFL, and now here we are.
Ugh. Yeah, Dad, the short-lived Steelers offensive renaissance from a couple of weeks ago feels like a distant memory. They popped over 400 yards for the first time since the W. Bush administration and then promptly turned back into a pumpkin against the vaunted Arizona Cardinals defense with 317 total yards last week. Obviously, the Kenny Pickett injury does factor into that some, but even prior to that, Dad, it was still not an offense that had looked overly comfortable. Jaylen Warren had just 60 yards. Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, didn't look nearly as explosive for one of the best rushing attacks in football. So I don't know what to think of this one, because on one side you have a Steelers offense that has struggled mightily, and on the other side you've got a Patriots offense that all they've done is hold opposing teams to 10 or fewer points in 3 straight games as they have gone 0-3 because their offense is such a tire fire. So welcome to hell. Here's Thursday Night Football.
It is. I mean, you know what's going on the field and the locker room, and the defense is playing well enough to win, and the offense, can't do anything, of how frustrating that's got to get. But they know where their lot this season is. It's going nowhere. So this is when players start to make sure they're taking care of themselves and making sure they end the season well. Every player on a team, Mike, and this, is in a different position. Some are going to be back and they're locks on the team. Others teetering on that, and others are playing for jobs. So this is that situation where, and you might be playing for a new head coach if Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick decide to part ways. So it takes on a different situation. And the biggest thing, because I've been in this situation in the NFL when you're not in it, is what starts to suffer. You don't try less on game day, but when you used to show up at 7:30 on Wednesday and Thursday to get a lift in, and do all those things, watch extra film after practice, all of a sudden you may stop doing those a little bit. You may not be lifting as much. You may not be eating as well. You may say, oh, I'll catch film later, or I'll watch it at home. Again, I know guys sometimes will watch it together in meeting room, but they have the iPads to watch it on. You don't do as much to prepare when basically your season is over. That's where players can get into the trouble, is the preparation. They're always going to try hard on game day. And for Pittsburgh, for as bad as they look, Mike, they're sitting there in the 5 slot. They're the first seed wild card right now. So this is a must-win for them. You look at after this, they play the Colts, who are in the playoffs as we speak, the Bengals without Joe Burrow, then the Seahawks, who are fighting in the NFC, and then finish with the Ravens. And they can only hope that the Ravens have something locked up by then and maybe sit some of their guys if in case Pittsburgh needs that game to get into the playoffs. We'll have to wait and see. But we'll see about Najee Harris. He's questionable, didn't practice all week. Is he going to play? Mitch is obviously running the team this week with the ankle injury to Kenny Pickett. It's just not a very good team. But as we always say, just try and get to the dance. You never know what can happen. And Mike Tomlin coaches you. So that means you're going to be over 500 and usually look maybe sometimes better than you really are, like they are right now record-wise. So this is one you can't let go. I mean, this is one you have to get this win.
I mean, the Steelers are going to beat the Patriots, but it feels like the final score of this game could realistically be 8-6. Like, I would not be surprised if it was some awful, cursed number like that Al Michaels has to grit his teeth and bear through on a Thursday night game where everyone's walking in banged up. And even the Steelers in the best version of this, the offense that we celebrated as this breakthrough moment, scored 16 points against the Bengals. Their last 3 games offensively have been 10 points, 16 points, 13 points. For any of the offensive revival between the 20s, they're still having a difficult time pushing the ball in the end zone. And spoiler alert, that's not going to get any easier coming up here against this Patriots team, who, especially as a rush defense, has been one of the best in pro football during this latter stretch of the season, and is going up against a Steelers team where that's their overwhelming strength. And I'd imagine with Mitch Trubisky, even in a banged-up Najee Harris, still got Jaylen Warren back there, who's looked every bit of Najee's equal through the majority of this season, is going to be their answer to a lot of those problems. It's just the other side, Dad. I can't find any place where I think the Patriots can have success offensively. I just refuse to believe it at this point. No matter who they've cycled through at quarterback there, it's looked like a complete tire fire, and I don't see how on a short week that's going to change against TJ Watt and the pass rush for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I mean, a lot of firsts for New England. First time since '93 that they failed to score in the first half in back-to-back games. You mentioned the fact that they lost 3 straight games where they allowed 10 points or fewer. No team has done that since 1938. The Chicago Cardinals. I mean, it's been it's been historically bad for a team that's been so historically good to now go just flip the coin and go to the other side. The New England Patriot fans probably find, and this is not normal for them. Are they like the Jets fans have been forever, just hoping their team loses to get a better draft pick? It's a position they have no idea how to deal with because they've never had to really deal with this. So I wonder how Patriot fans are dealing with it. Jet fans are used to it. Patriot fans are not. So this has got to be difficult for them, knowing there's not going to be another a parade this year for them.
Well, I think for them it's less because they've been used to post Tom Brady seasons ending with kind of a wet fart. Like this has not been that's been their world since Tom Brady left. They've not been championship contenders. They've not been realistically considered for any of that. It hasn't gone this badly, but the point now, I think, for New England fans is just expecting wholesale change next year, right?
Yeah.
Very few people expect Bill Belichick to be back as the coach of this team. Nobody expects Mac Jones to be the quarterback of this team going forward. And so you're going to, for the first time in most of the adult lifetimes of Patriots fans, likely be dealing with a new head coach in Foxborough to go along with whatever the world turns as far as your quarterback situation post Tom Brady.
Yeah, you had Tom Brady for so long, and that's another thing you look at now. The Steelers may be in the playoffs. They also have their quarterback of the future in Kenny Pickett. At least at this point, that's what they feel they're going to be. And the Patriots had to move on from Tom Brady and go to Mac Jones and think he is going to be that guy. But they have to restart their clock, right? Maybe with a new coach, we'll see. But it's going to be with a new quarterback. So that's always an interesting part to every team that has to start the clock over with their quarterback and how they go about it. That's the time you can build around because a rookie quarterback numbers, as opposed to if that quarterback hits and what you have to pay him, you have time to build around. So now the clock really starts over again, just like it did when Brady left and you got a young quarterback in. It now starts over again. But there's going to have to be other big-time changes on that team as well.
I believe I saw a stat today that in terms of winning for unders, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been the best team in football this year in terms of betting. So that seems about the only thing you've got to look forward to tonight. You've got a Steelers team with a backup quarterback that's made its living on the ground going up against, according to EPA per play, expected points average per play, the number one rush defense in the NFL. And on the other side, no Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots. Bailey Zappi got sacked 5 times last week against a Chargers defense that is bad and is going up against the Steelers defense that is not world beaters, but does have 2 guys on the edge that can get after the quarterback pretty well and got blanked, after getting blanked by the Chargers and saying that out loud at home, I struggle to see a world where they score points, Dad. The Steelers are going to win this game, but none of us are going to have a great time with it.
No, and the Steelers right now, like we said, look like they can make the playoffs. And if they do, I don't think a lot of people feel that, what they do in the playoffs could be very good, quite honestly. The Patriots, and they play the Colts, the Bengals, the Seahawks, and as we mentioned, we finish up with the Ravens. So I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know what you do with this game. Even if the Steelers win, this would easily be one of those games if they lost it and missed the playoffs to look back at this game. But I don't think many would shake their head too bad because I think even they realize the Steelers, while a playoff team on paper, maybe aren't really a playoff team.
Pittsburgh versus New England on Thursday night. It's football, so watch it. Welcome back to GoJo and Golic, and we are very excited around here for a lot of reasons. You know, we got a lot of great stuff going on in the sports world, but we got a lot of great news going on here around at the DraftKings network. Announced yesterday that starting on January 1st on DKN, you guys are going to be able to check out the All the Smoke podcast coming to DraftKings network, Meadowlark Media. Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, one of the best podcasts out there. And to join us in celebrating that occasion, Steven Jackson's with us here now, and we just had a beautiful moment when he joined the chat off air. As my father, always trying to be polite and a great host, goes up and he's like, "Hey, Steven, Mike Golic Sr., Mike Golic Jr. here. We're excited to have you here." Introducing him after all these years, Steven, you had to be a little bit stunned by that.
Yeah, way to welcome me on with an insult, okay? That's a great way to bring me on. Of course, I know you and your son. I'm honored to be on your show. There's no way that I could be in this sports world and not know you and have respect for you guys. So thanks for having me, man. I'm honored.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And I'm looking forward to this podcast. And I'm wondering, with so many former and current athletes that are doing podcasts, I started to think about the four major sports, and I kind of pushed baseball and hockey to the side as far as players and former players. In our sport of football, Steven, we always said the further away from the ball, the more the smack talk, DBs, wide receivers, really. Basketball seems to me where you get the best talking athletes out there to one another, which in turn could lead to the best podcasts out there. Do you feel that basketball players are the best smack talkers out there?
I wouldn't say that, because 90% of them talking just because the camera's on them. They're not talking because they really want to fight or they really mean what they say, right? They just doing that for TV. So I think I would say this. You have guys in every sport. You have guys that's good at trash talk, and you got guys that mean what they say. Gary Payton was one of the best at trash talk, and I don't know if he was willing to back it up on the court. Off the court, he probably would, but it was basically on the court. Guys like me and I'll say Draymond Green, we'll say the same thing off the court that we'll say on the court and mean the same thing. So you got a lot of guys that do it for attention, but as far as podcasts, I think the reason why I can speak for us that we have success because, one, we're both NBA champions. Two, everything that we've been through in our life, good and bad, has been all over social media. So we wear emotions on our sleeves. And everything that we talk about from experience. We don't talk about what we assume or what we think. We talk about what we actually been through. And I think that's what works for us. You know, a lot of people don't have the experience that we have in our sport and in life. And we've been through everything that possibly an athlete could go through, especially an athlete that come from where we come from. So a lot of people relate. And I think for me, not to have a long answer, but I'm somebody that have a relationship with somebody from every race, and I stand on something that says love for all who have love for all. So my fan base is everybody because I have a relationship, and I told somebody from every race that I love them, and I mean it. So the people that support us are people that you can say we starting our own rainbow coalition. That's what it looks like.
There we go. The All the Smoke Rainbow Coalition. I can sign up for that one in a heartbeat. That is what you guys can all sign up for. Again, starting on DKN January 1st. But a lot of people have been fans of you guys for a while. It's one of the best podcasts out there. A ton of great interviews, some awesome perspectives. And coming into a time right now where, Steven, man, you guys got plenty to talk about between the players that you get to talk, but also what's going on in the NBA right now. We've been talking a bunch on this show about the in-season tournament deal that they've had going on here. What were your thoughts on this before we saw it happen, and now that we're getting towards the semifinals in Vegas? Has this worked? Has the league done a good job with this?
You know, I'm a real one. When it first came out, I hated it. I didn't understand why could you have a season in the middle of a season. Guys don't already play hard. They don't care. They rest in half the season. Why would you put more stress on these guys in the season? Because half of them don't want to play 82 games anyway. Well, I take that back. This has been very entertaining, and the games in the in-season tournament have been more competitive than the regular game. So this was the great idea, and they may need to play the whole season like that. Because even you see guys like Kawhi Leonard, he's played the most games he's played this part of the season. So far in the last 3 years, he hasn't played this many games at the beginning of the season. He's been taking a lot of rest and playing every 2 games. So now he's playing almost every game because it's in-season tournament, and the guys matter. And then you give these guys a chance to win some money. You know, all these guys contracts are not guaranteed. So that $500,000 that these guys can make, it can help some of those guys. So I get it now. The incentive of money, the incentive to make guys play harder. I like it now, but at the beginning, Mike, I hated it.
Stephen, we were the same way. Both of us were the same way. We were like, why the hell are they doing this? Players didn't even know when the games were unless I saw a funky chord out there. Then I thought, okay, this is one of those games that we got to play. And it seems like they're all into it now. One of the things you mentioned is guys don't want to play 82 games anyway. What are your thoughts on the league coming out with their load management discipline to try and get players to play more? Do you think that's going to work?
Yeah, I love it because, you know, I just go off of myself, and I think guys kind of disrespect the game so much when they don't give 110% effort to play with all the money we make. And I was one of those guys. I played 3 years with a broken toe. You know, I tried out for 18 NBA teams with stress fractures in both my feet and ended up breaking them both. So the game meant a lot to me. I wanted to play. I knew what the game could do for my family. I knew what the game could do for me and the opportunity to be in the NBA. So when guys are physically healthy to play and they got a little nick and they don't want to play because they had a previous injury, I didn't respect that, and I never will. We tried our best to play 82 games. We didn't get a reward for it, but that was the goal for us, to play 82 games. So I love the fact that they put their rule in because it's forcing guys to be accountable. It's forcing guys to appreciate the game the way they should. And when you appreciate the game and play the game with that certain passion, it rewards you. And I think guys need to get back to that attitude.
With the things that you value like that, gutting it out, playing through injury, toughness, trying to effort toward that goal, and you mentioned backing up what you're going to say on and off the court. When you look at the game now, is there a young guy, someone coming up here, one of the young studs in the league that you look at and say, that's a guy that I would have gotten down with? That's a guy I would have liked to have as a teammate who plays the game and embodies the things that I value the most?
If it was one guy that Russell Westbrook, he's my type of guy. 110%, good or bad night, not feeling well, I'm going to show up and play regardless. I'm going to give my team my all. The media can say what they want about me, but I know who I am as a person. I'm going to continue to be a professional. You bring me off the bench, you say this about me. I'm leading the NBA all time in triple-doubles, but you still talk about me like I'm a scrub. But I still come out and do my job. I don't demean anyone. I love Russell Westbrook because it's about playing the game. It's about appreciating your teammates and appreciating the organization that's giving you an opportunity. He does all those things.
He really does. And now on this Clippers team, a real opportunity with the guys that they've put together there to make something happen. That's going to be exciting to watch. It's going to be even more exciting to watch you, Matt Barnes, and All the Smoke hitting DKN January 1st. Steven, congrats on this. Congrats on all the success, man. It's been awesome watching you guys do your thing over there for some time now, and we're glad to have you guys over here under the DKN umbrella with us.
Man, we're honored to be there. Can't wait to see you guys in person, and thanks for having me, man. You have a blessed day.
Thanks, Steven. Appreciate it, man.
You too, man. Absolutely. We'll talk to you again real soon here. And, Dad, no, you're absolutely right. We have seen so many of like the long-form interview podcasts, too. Some of the NBA podcasts have done such a phenomenal job of that between All the Smoke, between Old Man and the Three with JJ Redick. You know, they've led the charge in some of these inside looks at the lives of the players that we see each and every day.
I think I still say I think basketball players do the best job of taking you inside the sport and giving you even more of that outside the sport. I think they do. Listen, we have some great guys in football doing it as well. Obviously, the Kelsey brothers are unbelievably popular right now, but there are others out there as well. But I just think basketball players, man, they just are not afraid to say anything and lay it all out there and give you the raw experience and take you to the inside and give you the true experience. I dig it. I'm looking forward to this.
No, going to be a great addition. So, again, you guys can all check that out. And between that, Amino Hassan's over here. We got a good crew reassembling from the old ESPN days on the NBA front. All right, time to finish off the show the way that we always do. This, that, and the third. 3 quick stories to send you off on your way. Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review us. Leave us that 5-star rating and check us out live here Monday through Friday on DraftKings Network, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. You can catch us DraftKingsNetwork.com, Samsung TV Plus, Roku, right here on the DraftKings YouTube channel. And if you can't get with us live and you miss any of the show, you can go back and listen to it, like our great guests that we've had. Brevin Jordan, tight end for the Houston Texans. Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports football and all-around content creator, as well as Fox Sports Radio. And Steven Jackson, one of the co-hosts of All the Smoke, him and Matt Barnes, that again will be starting on DraftKings Network here officially in the new year. Check out that wherever you get your podcast or right here on YouTube as soon as we get done with the live show. And guys, let's get to this and our first story here. A former Jacksonville Jaguars employee has been allegedly accused of stealing over $22 million from the team over the last 5 years by exploiting the organization's virtual credit card program, according to a report originally from The Athletic. And Dad, I think the most surprising thing here, and the joke made around the world yesterday, was as the Jags were talking about an employee stealing money from them, no, it was not Urban Meyer.
Oh, wow. He had already done that. Yeah, he had already done that, but didn't get in trouble with the law for it. It was a different kind of stealing. It wasn't stealing in the truest sense of what this guy was doing. 22 mil of which, so I have a question for you guys, and Jesse, I'll start with you. Some of the things he bought: 2 cars, a condominium, and a designer watch.
Hell yeah.
Worth over $95,000 and bought cryptocurrency and did bets online. If you stole $22 million, Jesse, and you were trying to not be too flashy with it to show that, but still wanted it, what would you be buying? What would you be spending that on outside of caviar?
Wait, sorry, not be too flashy with it?
Yeah. Well, no, he was. He was. I'm just saying in all the movies I watch, you're not supposed to be too flashy with it.
I'll tell you what I would buy. I would buy property in a country that does not have an extradition treaty with the United States, so that when it eventually caught up to me, I could go to my sick abode somewhere in the world and they could not extradite me back to the United States to face my crimes.
Are you speaking from experience? You
just
came out with that answer pretty quick.
If you're going to commit crime, you better have a plan.
Wow.
You know?
She's thought about this, Mike.
This sounds like pre-crime. I'm no snitch. And by the way, let's talk off air, on the off chance that you are currently involved in some scheme, because this sounds vaguely like Office Space in what they were looking to do, stealing fractions of a penny from all these transactions, and it just gone wrong. The guy did get away from it for 5 years because he basically, in the response to this, went full Coming to America, walking around in the streets, flossing on everybody here with the stuff that he was buying. And respect on that. The fact that it took them 5 years to put together a case, probably the thing I would be more concerned about as a Jags fan, that this guy apparently swiped $22 million and you weren't able to put it together for 5 years.
Yeah, that's pretty concerning.
And I guess the point is too, are you doing hard jail time for this in a hard jail?
No, you're going to Club Fed.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're going to do something illegal, you got to think of what's on the other side of it if I get caught. And, maybe you think, it's not going to hurt too bad.
But you don't get to keep anything. It's not like he gets to keep the $22 million or they're going to let him keep the condos. Like, he's got to give it back.
Yeah.
That does suck. I'm not going to lie. I would have done exactly what he did almost to a T on this one. I would like to think I'd be smart enough to pull off what Jesse described there. And again, we're going to talk after that so we can put together this plan. But in all reality, I probably would have eventually done this or just eaten myself to death. Either way, congratulations to the Jags on apparently stopping the bleeding in at least one area of their organization. Jesse, let's get to that and celebrate an actual good milestone from someone who's not stealing but instead scoring.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark, she has become the first player in Division I history, women's or men's, with 3,000 points, 750 rebounds, 750 assists. My God, Caitlin Clark is her. Pretty insane, guys. I mean, so she has 3,013 points for her career now. She could pass Kelsey Plum as an all-time leading scorer in the NCAA era. So that's pretty insane milestone that Caitlin Clark has reached.
Yeah, my quick math says 514 points she needs. My quick math on that of what Plum has, 3,527 points as opposed to 3,013 for Clark. So she could get that. But what a career. I mean, what an absolutely incredible career she's had.
Yeah, I mean, and that would, I think, perfectly signify what she's meant to the sport in this era. She's been one of the best players that we've seen in a span of years where we've had some of the most notable high-profile women's basketball games, the incredible tournaments from the last couple of seasons, household names now in the sport that's only grown as we've gotten into the name, image, and likeness era. And she has kind of led the charge in all of this in a lot of ways, just with her style of play. That Steph Curry ability to basically have the green light as soon as you cross half court has made her must-watch stuff, Dad, for the majority of her college career. And I'm sure it's going to continue that way as she marches towards even more history like we just laid out.
And for those who want to win a dollar bet at the bar, there are actually two other women who have scored more points than Plum and Clark. They played in the pre-NCAA era. Pearl Moore from Francis Marion in 75 to 79, and at Kansas, Lynette Woodard from 77 to 81. They scored 38, 84, and 36, 49. But each one of them, Pearl Moore scored the most in that one. So that's pretty impressive. Pre-NCAA, I didn't realize that. So what, all of a sudden that doesn't count? I mean, it's like I don't get all that. I mean, like sacks in the NFL, nothing. You don't count anything before 82. Like you can't count them. It's amazing.
Sacks in the NFL is different to me because it's like, why were we not counting those things? I understand counting sometimes hard and that maybe people were just lazier back then. That seems like a your generation problem. You guys couldn't be bothered to just do something simple like count stats there. It seems pretty entitled of you guys. I don't know how you've accomplished anything with that kind of attitude. It's a pretty big indictment of you, an entire generation of people. So at least we had the decency to now give you all sorts of litany of stats here, quite honestly. The greatest generation, millennials.
Well, I think they had said about sacks that you can only go back so far with the taping of games, that some of them weren't always taped all the way through, so you couldn't get an accurate count of people and the number of sacks they had if you were just talking about and counting them and watching old games back. Or at least maybe that was their excuse for our lazy generation.
Yeah, it sounds pretty convenient. No one at the game there could have been sitting there with, the chisel or your notepad or whatever the hell you guys used to write back then and just mark down when somebody got a sack. How hard is it to see? Oh, man, look at the big guy just went and sacked. Deacon Jones or Reggie White or someone went out there and got a sack. Let me mark it down and give the big fella credit. Again, that's a you guys problem. That's not a me problem. We'll address that for the other day. And instead, Jesse, get to the third and focus on young people continuing to do great things that grossly outpaces my parents' generation.
Brock Lesnar's daughter has done just that. She broke the shot put record at Colorado State. And good Lord, look at this side by side. Talk about the genes are gening. I mean, good Lord. That is uncanny. It runs in the family, as we can see here.
Let me tell you what. You want to talk about someone who could win a lot of dollar bets, arm wrestling at the bar right there, Dad, like you talked about before? Absolute problem. My favorite is she had 2 first-place finishes, one in the shot put and the other in the weight throw with a mark of 21.11 meters. Weight throw, best aptly event name ever. Like, just simple. Hey, we got weight here. You guys are going to toss this weight here. And she tossed that weight better than anybody else because her dad is a man with a sword tattooed on his chest going up to his throat.
Listen, everybody remembers Brock Lesnar from WWE or MMA. He was a national champ in Minnesota in wrestling. I mean, he was a great amateur wrestler. Junior college, he won there as well, and then went up to Minnesota and was a national champ. I think that's forgotten a lot. So amateur sports, he was fantastic. Went on to have that great professional career. But my gosh, his daughter, what a whew. Let's see how far she can take this. Pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
I do wonder if there is a career, I don't know if she's ever been interested in joining the future family business and pro wrestling, but it seems like she has got the physical makeup to go and be the kind of athlete that puts on a show, and she's got the perfect teacher for that to potentially send it off. So once she's done with the weight throw, we'll see if she's ready to go off the turnbuckle here. If you guys enjoy us throwing weight around in this podcast, make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, leave us a 5-star rating. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.